morning, sir. My name is Matt, United States Navy Memorial. Welcome. If I could please have your name and rank.
Good morning, Matt. Pleasure to talk to you. Name is Joseph Franklin Jaggard, Lieutenant Commander, USN retired.
Fantastic. Well, sir, if you could just start us off when you first got involved with the Navy. Just bring us through.
Okay, graduated from high school in June of 1940. Tried to enlist and they sent me back home because I was only 16. So after I passed my 17th birthday in September, I went back and enlisted in the Navy. They held me off. At that time it wasn't easy to get in. They were having their choice of selectees. So I got in March of 41. Actual enlistment date was April 23rd, 1941. And then I went to A school. First I went through boot camp in Norfolk. And from Norfolk I went to Pensacola to Aviation Metalsmith School. And from Aviation Metalsmith School I got my orders directly to USS Hornet, CV-8.
Wow.
And I was assigned to VF-8. At the time, it was the process of the squadrons. When they went aboard ship, they had to detail so many of their men to support the ship's movement. So I got detailed to a blue shirt on the flight deck,
Okay.
which consisted of a plane handler. Those days they didn't use tractors and tow bars. They used manpower to move the airplanes around the deck. Of course, when all that planes landed, they were forward. It all had to be moved back aft into takeoff position, and that was our job.
Oh, wow.
And handling the chops and tie downs and fire bottles and whatever else was needed on the flight deck. And I did this all the way through, and we loaded Doolittle in Alameda, and we handled those B-25s by hand on the flight deck.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
we
wow.
pushed them around the flight deck by hand, and spotted them for transportation, and had to respot for takeoff. My job when they took off, I had number 2 airplane with a bar on the nose wheel to steer the plane onto the white line and get him lined up for takeoff position on the flight deck.
Oh, wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you were out there when he was revving up? Full day.
As a matter of fact, I was on number 2 airplane, and when Doolittle, which was number 1 airplane, when he went to full power, I had to wrap my arms around the nose strut to keep from being
Did
blown.
you?
Oh yeah, the wind was terrific. It blew you down the deck. As a matter of fact, one of our members did get blown and got his arm cut off with one of the B-25s. The wind was really fierce coming down the deck.
We were in pictures, yeah.
Yeah, we were in rough seas. The flight deck officer was a Lieutenant Osborne. He was really keen in the way he could anticipate the ship's movement, and he would catch the flight deck on the way up, and just about the time it got to the full up position, he launched a bird.
Oh, wow.
So that as the plane went down the flight deck, the deck was dropping away. And that's why when you see the pictures of the B-25s, they seem to lift off real quick. That's because the deck was going out from underneath of them. And they were flying much quicker than they anticipated. And of course, having that heavy wind really helped them with their launch.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as we got free of them, we immediately headed to the Coral Sea to help with the Lexington and Yorktown in the Coral Sea battle. However, we didn't get down there in time. It was over before we got down there. So they turned us around, sent us back to Pearl Harbor. We got provisions, refueled, and set up for the Midway battle. And then we went out with the Enterprise and the Yorktown into the Midway battle. We were right on the horizon from the Yorktown when she got hit.
Oh, so you saw it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
And our fighters were helping protect. They were flying the combat air patrol along with the Yorktown and the Enterprise fighters. Of course, as everybody well knows, it was our torpedo squadron that first sighted the Japanese and made the run, and they wiped out the entire squadron because they had no support.
Right. But the strike of the Japanese enough.
But they confused the Japanese enough that the dive bombers had a clear shot.
Yeah.
They didn't get opposed at all because the Japs were worried about the torpedo planes. and they didn't see those SBDs coming down on them until it was too late.
Right.
And they really wiped them out. Yeah. Then after the Midway battle, we spent some time chasing. We chased a cruiser and 2 destroyers. We managed to catch up with them and severely damaged the cruiser. I don't know whether it sunk or not, but it was really severely damaged. And sunk both destroyers.
Oh, wow.
And this was about 2 days after, in the Midway battle.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the Admiral figured we chased them far enough, we better get back home. And that's when we turned and went back to Pearl. And how far you want me to go?
You're doing fantastic. This is unbelievable.
Oh, okay.
I love this.
Okay. Well, we went back into Pearl and again got reprovisioned, refueled, and new aircraft because we had lost all of our torpedo planes and we had lost most of our fighters. I got to take a break. They had a supplementary fighter squadron sitting at Ford Island there at Honolulu, VF-72. The captain of the Hornet, you know, was Mark Mitchell, Captain Mark Mitchell. He was quite a captain.
Yeah.
He was one of the best ones out there. And he wouldn't have nothing to do with that. He said, I don't want those people, he said, but I'll take your airplanes and pilots. So they took the airplanes and pilots, kept us aboard and changed our number, and now became VF-72 instead of VF-8. But it was still the same bunch of guys.
Yeah. So they kept everyone together.
Everyone together.
Wow.
And they did the same thing with VT-8. Of course, they had lost all their planes and pilots. But he said, you can't take my people. I want the people.
Yeah.
Give me your planes and pilots. So we got VP-6 planes and pilots.
Oh, wow.
And then we headed off to support the invasion of Guadalcanal. And of course, we got down there and our mission at Guadalcanal, the Japs were staging their supply and support from Rabaul to support their troops at Guadalcanal. So we would go in and cut their supply routes.
Oh, you got them?
Yeah. We'd make a run in, launch a strike, and as soon as the planes launched, we'd turn around and head out. And then they'd catch us on the way out, and we'd get out of range of them, so they couldn't reach us with our land-based planes.
Oh, so they were land-based?
They were land-based, yeah, out of Rabaul. That was their big staging point. So after a couple, 3 weeks of that, they sent some carriers down, and that's when we got into Santa Cruz engagement. And unfortunately, we caught them, and they caught us.
Yeah.
You know, to this day, I'm still in doubt that we should have abandoned the ship. Nobody wanted to. It got late in the afternoon, and finally the captain said, we just can't do this. We couldn't get underway. Our rudders were jammed, and we couldn't get enough power. I couldn't get the rudders straightened out, and we got the whole fleet in danger.
Yeah.
Because they can reach us with their land-based planes. And we've got to get the fleet out of here, and we're going to have to get off of the ship. The ship wasn't sinking,
Right.
you know, but it was damaged pretty bad. We had taken 3 torpedo hits, 3 bomb hits, and 2 suicide divers. And had some pretty good damage to the ship, to the flight deck. Number 1 elevator was caved in. Stack was all torn apart where the plane dove into the side of the bridge.
The bridge got hit a little bit too, right?
Yeah. I was really fortunate. I had been changed from a blue shirt on the flight deck. I had a job as a sound-powered telephone talker in radar plot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right behind the bridge.
Oh, wow.
In fact, the guys waited for me to get off a watch every day to come tell them what was going on. Because I was right in the center of the whole...
Yeah, you could hear everything.
Yeah, planned it on the plotting board.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But that job only required me to be there when it was my turn on watch. And unfortunately, the day we got attacked, it wasn't my turn on watch,
Yeah.
because those guys were right where that plane hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'd have been on my job, I wouldn't be here today. I was on a hangar deck when it all took place. I helped fight fires, and then I ended up as a stretcher bearer carrying the wounded and disabled. They set up a medical facility back on the fantail of the ship, and we were carrying all the guys back there. And then the destroyers started coming up alongside, taking off the people. Yeah. And then when they said abandoned ship, they stretched cargo nets from the hangar deck over to the deck of the destroyer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the guys were scrambling down a cargo net, you know. And my buddy and I looked at that, and I said, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah.
I think we can jump it. So we took a run and jump, and we jumped from the hangar deck over to the deck of the destroyer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You both made it over there?
Yeah, we
Wow.
both made it over there. I hit up alongside the front turret and slid down to the deck, and this guy grabbed me and stood me on my feet. He said, "You all right?" I said, "I think so." He said, "Give me a push." He said, "Go aft."
Good.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was the USS Russell,
Okay.
the destroyer Russell. The next morning, here comes a cruiser Juno up alongside.
Oh, really?
And I'm standing on the deck, and this chief grabbed me and he said, "Get up here on top of this clipping room, I need your help." And I looked over at the cruiser, and they're firing the line gun, and he shot a line across, and we rigged a high line with a boatswain's chair, and they got it all rigged up, and the chief turned around and grabbed me and said, "You did a good job, you get the first ride, get in the chair."
Oh, wow.
So I got a high line ride from the Russell over to the Juno, and that was a beautiful ship. That's the one the 5 Sullivan
Yeah.
brothers were on. Yeah. If I met them, I don't remember, but the people on there were really great to us. First thing they did was run us through the showers and clean us up, and then took us down to small stores and give us new dungarees and shoes. And I spent 2 days on there. Then they pulled into Noumea, at the island of New Caledonia, and they put us ashore, and they run us through a Quonset hut, and we come out the other end with a hard hat and rifle, and fatigues, and cot and a blanket, and parts of the tent.
Oh, wow.
And they put us in a 6x and run us out into the jungle, and came to a clearing, and they dumped us off and said, "Set up your tents. This is home for a while."
Really?
Really.
Oh, my gosh.
And come to find out, I had joined the 2nd Marine Division.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they taught us how to throw grenades.
So you went from the carrier life to your foot soldier.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a transformation.
Yeah. This Marine, he had us all sitting in a circle, and he's got a hand grenade in his hand, you know, and he said, "Now I'm going to tell you," he said, "it's a dummy." He said, "Otherwise I wouldn't pull a pin and stand here and let this handle go." And it went pop, and then it was everybody scattered.
Oh, really?
Dog running like crazy. And he said, "That's how a hand grenade works." And it was really a dummy. And then they had us practice throwing them, and you know, the routine of do it right. And about midnight one night, they come around and broke us out of our tents and said, "Just bring your rifle, leave all the cot, blankets, tent, just put your clothes on, get your rifle and your hard hat, and get in the truck." And they took us down to the pier, and they put us in the mite boats and took us out to this ship, and of course it's blackout, no lights. And they said, "Go up on deck and find a cot and lay down, and don't go near the bulkheads. Stay out in the middle of the deck and find a cot and lay down." And pretty soon after it started getting a light, and I noticed that this was a peculiar looking ship. It had a concrete deck with railroad tracks in it.
Really?
Yeah, and what it was one of these barges out of the Great Lakes that they ship trains across the Great Lakes in. And that's what the railroad tracks were for the trains to run on.
Oh, wow.
But they had drawn down there, and they used them for troop transports.
Wow.
And when the light and my eyes got used to the darkness, what was on the bulkheads were guard bellows.
Really?
and each one had its handler with it. And then those dogs never made a sound when we come sneaking in there and laid down on them cots. And they didn't make any noise in the daytime either. We went to Guadalcanal, and they put us up with the Marine patrols, and we were in defense of Henderson Field. And whenever they needed a plane repaired, they came and got said, "Hey, who's the metalsmiths here from a fighter squadron? We got one needs some fixing up." And we about 2 months of this, and they had secured Guadalcanal, and the Marines were turning it over to the Army. And the Jeep carrier showed up, and it had a lot of airplanes and no crew. I never understood that either.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
We had secured Guadalcanal, and things were kind of going our way, and we were getting ready to go and invade up in Bougainville. And these other Jeep carriers had showed up.
Now the name of the Jeep carrier you were on?
I was on a Nassau, the USS Nassau, Nassau.
Okay, and that was a CVE?
That was a CVE.
Oh, wow. So
in fact, that wasn't. What it was a tanker with a flight deck on it.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Oh, my God.
The hangar deck was like a bow.
Yeah.
And when you had a plane down there, there was no way you could push it up there. So we had a winch with a line, and and a pulley, and brought the line down, and then hooked the winch up and towed the airplane up to the elevator.
Oh, wow.
To get it up on the flight deck.
So you were at Guadalcanal, and then so this CVE.
Yeah. The
came in.
Nassau.
The Nassau
There
came
were
in.
two of them, the Nassau and the Altamaha, and they split us because they didn't need a whole darn CV squadron
Right.
in that little Jeep.
Right.
So they split us in half, and they put half of us on the Nassau and half on the Altamaha.
Oh, wow.
And we operated there for a couple months, and then we got relieved, and they put us, other squadrons come in to take our place, and we did this in Espirito,
Okay.
in the harbor there at Espirito. And then I went back to the States in March of '43 on the USS Copenhagen.
Oh, wow. Now tell me about the Copenhagen.
The Copenhagen was a CVE,
Okay.
and she was taken. She had a whole bunch of wrecked airplanes, and all of our squadron personnel who they were going to send back for relief,
Okay.
and take them all back to the States
For refurbishing.
for refurbishing.
To get them back.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Wow. And where did you sail back to in the States?
Came into San Diego.
San Diego.
Right. And
So you were out there a long time.
Yeah, from well, we came through the Panama Canal after. Yeah, it was in '42 in January when we brought the Hornet around.
Right.
And then picked up Doolittle, and then, by the time we got it, first we had to go to San Diego, and would you believe when we went to sea with the Hornet from Norfolk in '41, our aircraft were fabric-coated wing biplanes, SBC-4s.
Were they really?
Were they really?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And we carried these planes with us and through the canal and went into San Diego, and then we had to turn them all in, and then we got SBDs.
Wow.
And we got new fighters too. When we left, we had F4 F3s, and we got to San Diego, they give us the new F4 F4s, and the big difference was that the 4s wings folded. The 3s didn't. So you could use only about half as many 3s as you could 4s,
Yeah,
because of the wing fold.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, instead of 4 machine guns, they had 6 machine guns.
Oh.
Yeah. And of course, all the world of difference between the SBC-4 and the SBD-1 was a whole another airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were the mainstay of our Navy in World War II. They were dive bombers.
Wow.
They were super airplanes. And our torpedo planes that we took with us were TBDs. And they were obsolete before we even went out.
Yeah.
And this was the squadron that got wiped out. Their top speed was about 100 knots. They had to slow down to 80 knots to drop a torpedo. Well, you imagine what the Zeros did to them.
Yeah.
They just chopped them up. Where when the TBFs come out, and that was a whole new ballgame.
Right, right.
Because a TBF can cover a torpedo, doesn't even know it's got one.
Yep.
And a heck of a lot more speed and maneuverability. Yeah.
Better armor.
Better armor.
Yeah.
And better, yeah, particularly with that 50 caliber turret.
Yeah.
Wow. That was the first airplane I ever flew in.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, TBF, and I flew in as a turret operator in TBF.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, even enlisted guys, we got paid flight pay.
Really?
Yeah. And we had to put in a minimum of 4 hours a month.
Wow.
So you'd have to go bum a ride with somebody to get your time in so you
Yeah.
could draw your flight
You
pay.
get paid.
Yeah.
Wow.
This was an incentive, you know, to
Yeah,
enlist
get up there.
people in. Yeah.
Great. Now, you brought me up to when you returned home.
Yeah,
returned
got to
States.
San Diego. Okay. Want to go on from there?
Yeah. What year was that? When did you?
That was in 43.
43. Wow.
Yeah,
So you were out
March
there.
of 43.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like coming stateside? Because when you left, the war had just begun. in a
Oh, it
sense.
was a altogether different world.
Really?
Boy, yeah. When I got back by that time, back in the States was all the rationing. You had to have a stamp to buy anything, even a
Yeah.
pair of shoes. You had to have stamps. Yeah, whole different world. But they sure treated us great.
Yeah.
I was given 30 days. They called it survivor's leave.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's when I got married.
Oh, great.
I went home and got married and took my bride back, and my new station was Sandpoint Naval Air Station in Washington, state of Washington. And then I started all over again with a CV-8 squadron. I went in the VC-92, which, and then they were, for the CV-8s, they had changed the whole routine. The squadron was a composite squadron. It had both fighters and torpedo planes in one squadron.
Really?
Yeah.
So it was
It was all one.
Okay.
Right, with just one outfit. And then when you got ready to go aboard ship, they streamlined the people down to nothing but like inspector personnel, because the maintenance people were already on the CV-8s, and they were called carrier aircraft service units, or CASUs. Was on the ship, and that was the maintenance personnel for the squadron that was going to come aboard. So when I went all through their training phase with them, and we were in Los Alamitos, and then we got the orders to go aboard, and then had to cut the people down, and CO called me in and said, "You've been out there once. If you don't want to go again, say so, and I'll send you back. I'll send you on." So being a new bridegroom with a new bride,
Right. And knowing what it was like out there.
know what it was like out there. I went on back to Alameda, and that's where I ended the war at the Alameda Naval Air Station.
Oh, wow. Now, did you end your Navy career there?
That was only the start, really.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. Had so many points to be eligible to get out, you know, after the war, and everybody was one who had the highest points.
Yeah.
Hey, I had points way up to here, and I walk up to personnel, and okay, we're ready for you. I said, I want to ship over, and you could have heard a pin drop. There wasn't a sound in that place. People weren't doing that. And I ended up in front of the captain, Captain Lex L. Black. And he'd send everybody out of the office. He said, I want to talk to the man. And he said, do you realize what you're doing? Have you given this some thought? He said, at that time I was a first class petty officer. He said, you'll probably be a first class petty officer when you retire. And he said, it isn't going to be nothing but inspections and cleaning and
Yeah.
he said, do you need more time to think this over? And I said, no, sir, I want to ship over. Okay. So I re-enlisted.
Wow.
And the one thing I always liked about the Navy, you got a new job every 2 years, and it was so interesting, and the jobs they gave you. And one of the first things that happened, they split the metalsmith rate. At the time, the machinists were taking care of the hydraulics. And they also had the fuel systems plus the engines.
Okay.
All the metalsmiths had to worry about was the skin on the airplane, right? Well, they wanted to equalize that, so they took the hydraulics away from the machinists and gave it to the metalsmiths.
Oh, really?
Right.
Oh.
So then they came out at that time, the only metalsmith rate was an AM, aviation metalsmith. And then they came out with an AMH and an AMS.
Okay.
You could be hydraulics or sheet metal. Well, I got sent back to Memphis through hydraulics school. And, well, I got bragged a little bit. I would come out of there with a 4.0.
Wow.
Through hydraulics school.
Fantastic.
And in fact, the commander called me in and congratulated me, and he said, you know, I can't give you that. He said, there ain't nobody perfect. He said, I'll give you a 399. But a nice letter back to the commanding officer.
Great.
And at the time, I was in a transport squadron. I was in VR-44, which was a C-54 four-engine transport outfit at Moffett Field, California.
Okay.
And when I reported back, and they got all this stuff from the school, and I got called into the office, and they said, how would you like to be an instructor and instruct pilots? So I ended up in teaching pilots
Oh, wow.
all about the hydraulic system in a C-54.
Cool.
I did that at Moffett, and then they moved the whole outfit down to Corpus Christi. Being in a school, I only had a class. I'd have them for 2 weeks, and then the rest of the month I didn't have anything to do until the next class started.
Yeah.
So I got to doing courses, Navy correspondence courses, and I was doing the Navy Justice course.
Wow, okay.
And at the same time, my division officer happened to be the squadron legal officer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we got to talking one day, and I'm making better grades than he was.
Great.
So I ended up writing briefs for the legal officer, and then he got me involved in writing public information. And I had articles published in the Chicago Tribune and Kansas
Oh,
City
wow.
Star. And the CO called me in, and he said, boy, you are doing a terrific job. How do you like to go to school and learn how to do that? So I got sent to New York, New Rochelle, New York,
Okay.
through the Navy's Public Information School. Well, not the Navy's, it was military. We had Marines, Army, Navy, everybody in this public information school. I had courses in radio and television script writing.
Wow. Now, what year was this?
This was in 50,
Okay.
1950.
Wow.
And,
They paid for it all? They covered everything?
oh yeah,
Wow.
oh yeah. As a matter of fact, my family always traveled with me. And
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And they paid for them. And while I was in the school, I get a call as a commanding officer in Corpus at the squadron I was in. I was still in VR-44. And he said, I hate to tell you this, he said, but you got to set orders to a fighter squadron.
Oh.
He said, I went to the Bureau and they won't talk to me. He said, they're bound to determine you're going to go to that fighter squadron. So I graduated from this public information school and went down to Sanford, Florida, and reported to VF-31, which was stationed aboard the USS Lady.
Okay.
And I checked in, the maintenance officer said, what have you been doing? I said, I just graduated from public information school, and he threw up his hands. He said, I need metalsmiths, especially hydraulics people. I don't want no. I said, yes, sir, I am hydraulics. So I was with VF-31 for 2 years. And then went back to Corpus Christi again for more shore duty.
Wow.
With a training outfit with ADs. You know what ADs
No,
are?
what's that?
It's a dive bomber. In fact, they were used in Vietnam.
Oh, really?
You're right, and the U.S. government did in Vietnam quite a few of them. They could carry the firepower of a destroyer.
Oh, wow.
They were quite an airplane. Trying to think of the name. AD-1 was the abbreviation for the airplane. I'll come up with the name of it. I can't think of the name right offhand.
Super.
But it was quite an airplane. Anyhow, through the training squadron, I spent a couple of years there. Then I wanted to take my family overseas, and I had made all the arrangements to go to a squadron in Panama at Coca-Cola Naval Air Station. Even had a letter from the CO down there for concurrent travel for my family. I get my orders to HS-9 in Quonset Point, Rhode Island.
Ah,
Helicopters.
wow.
Here we go again. Something
Yeah,
altogether
something
different.
brand new.
Yeah. And what do? I end up back in Sikorsky in school learning all about helicopters.
Really?
Really.
Wow.
And as usual, I get into everything. I even got qualified as the helicopters were sonar dippers, submarine runners. And we had sonar equipment and a transducer ball that you lowered down in the water and pinged for submarines.
Oh, really?
Off of these helicopters.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they still use it today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got qualified to operate it here. I flew most of the left seat as a co-pilot in most of the test flights for the squadron. And I made chief in the squadron. And the day I checked out, I didn't know it until I got to my new command. I'd made warrant.
Wow.
So I did good in that squadron. And that took me up to 59. Now I'm back to Corpus again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I see a theme.
Yeah. Well, you know what the Navy does? You do your sea duty, and then they give you, they call it the wish card. Where would you like to go for shore duty?
Yeah.
And I'd put Corpus, 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 Corpus. Because nobody else wanted it. It's training command. Nobody wants to go to training command. And we loved it.
Yeah.
We loved the area, we loved the people, had a lot of good friends. So we always went back to Corpus.
Now next, after you return back again,
Okay?
where they send you next? What was your next duty?
Okay, I made warrant.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first duty I got as a warrant officer was officer of the day for the brig.
Oh, really? Ah.
Yeah,
Wow.
wow. And the old warrant officer that I was with, I actually belonged to the Naval Air Station and to the Aviation Maintenance Department, AMD they call it, Aviation Maintenance Department, the Naval Air Station. And he said, oh, they're just waiting for you, they're going to give you a gasoline job. This is ordinary billet for warrant officers. This is a gas officer on one of the carriers. And lo and behold, my orders finally came in and I went to AMD Norfolk.
Wow.
You know, I went through the roof. I don't know how you missed being, well, I didn't miss.
Yeah.
Because I put a year in AMD Norfolk and got my orders as a gasoline officer on the USS Guadalcanal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In the meantime, the Navy had decided they had brought in the E8, E9 program, and they were going to phase out the warrants. And they were going to use the E8s and E9s in the warrant billets and not have warrant officers. And commands wouldn't go for it. And they made so much rack about it, they decided, well, okay, they keep warrant officers. But in the interim, I had gotten a letter from the Bureau asking me if I would consider changing to a straight commission. And which I said, fine, as long as you make me a permanent warrant. So you can't break me all the way back to the list.
Yeah.
So I reported into the Aviation Fuel School in Bayonne, New Jersey, and they called me into the office and said, I got a set of orders here to promote you to lieutenant junior grade.
Wow.
Well, there was a little story to that too. In the meantime, my son, Joseph Franklin Jaggard Jr., was also in the Navy.
Oh, really?
And at the time, he was in A school in Memphis, Tennessee. And he's in a class taking a test when a messenger comes in and calls his name and says, come with me right now. And they take him down to personnel, and they want to know what he had put in for. They had a set of orders to commission him to a lieutenant junior grade, 18-year-old kid. Got the two crossed up. And I told him, I said, you made a big mistake.
Yeah.
You opened your mouth. You shouldn't have. And then he said, oh, those are my dad's.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, you never should have said a word. You should have kept your mouth shut.
Yeah.
But he did. So anyhow, I got promoted to Lieutenant JGE. I was a gasoline officer on the USS Guadalcanal. I reported in. It was a brand new. It was under construction in the Philadelphia Navy Yard.
Okay.
When I reported in, they said, we don't have any such ship here. I said, oh yeah, you do. I said, that's them rusty plates landing at
Yeah. So you were there from the very beginning. Wow.
Yeah, right
Wow.
from the very beginning. Our job was to make sure they were doing it right, the yard, you know?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I had to go through the fuel school up in Bayonne, and we got the ship commissioned and got underway, and I got to be buddies with a navigator. And I said, what's the chance of me coming up and on the bridge? Oh yeah, would you like that? I said, yeah, you think you can? Well, I was a classified Navy LDO, which is a limited duty officer, not eligible for command at sea. Only we didn't tell anybody this. And he brought me up on a bridge, and I'm standing bridge watches as a junior OD. You know? The second on the step. And one day we had some dignitaries coming aboard, and the captain said, I want Warren to go down and run festivities on the flight deck, get another OD up here. The OD I worked for was the assistant navigator.
Okay.
And the navigator said to the captain, well, why don't you just qualify Joe and we won't have to do that? Well, all right. So he said, Mr. Jaggard, you take over the deck and the con.
Wow.
Which I did. And everything went fine, no problems, till the next day, and the messenger comes down and says, the captain wants to see you on the bridge right now. And I go flying up there, and he's got the navigator standing at attention, he's got the assistant navigator standing at attention, and he said, you guys have pulled a fast one on me, and I don't appreciate it. He said, we qualified Joe yesterday, and he's not eligible. He's a limited duty officer. But the navigator had already looked into all of that. He had the situation covered, and he had the letter written.
Really?
Right? And he said, Captain, we send this letter in, and he said, I'll bet you the Bureau will pat you on the back for it rather than condemn you for it.
Yeah.
Which they did.
Wow.
Yeah. So I ended up not only being an OD, but I also took over the billet as a special sea and anchor detail OD. And whenever it went into port or out of port, I was the one doing it.
Wow.
That was the best job I ever had in the Navy. I loved driving that ship around the ocean and in and out of port.
Had to be something else.
I had some great times. We went into Brest, France, and we had to go through a channel and into a turning basin to get up to the dock. And you have to have a navigator. The navigator come aboard, didn't speak English, only spoke French.
Really?
Yeah. The captain says, do you understand? I said, yeah, I had high school French. I think I can get along with him, which we did, and we got it in the part. Made an interesting day.
Good.
Yeah. Also had an interesting time going into Portsmouth, England. Rather than going in, coming out, we started out, made the turn in the turning basin, and started down the channel. And the helmsman says, sir, I've lost steerage.
Really?
Unfortunately, we hadn't let the bow tug go. So I grabbed a mic and hollered for the bow tug to take a strain and straighten us up down the channel. We got the steering problem.
Wow.
And we got through, you had to go through a wall cut. We got through there with a tug guidance, got the thing out of sea, and got steering working again.
Wow. This was on the lake?
Just on the Guadalcanal.
Guadalcanal.
On the Guadalcanal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then I went from the Guadalcanal, when I got a set orders, and immediately the captain had them sent right back, and he said, orders will be executed when qualified relief on board. Oh man, here we go again.
Yep.
And of course, what they had sent, they sent a young ensign up there, just out of fuel school, and I told the captain, that's all they're putting through. He's got to do the job. Well, he said, you keep him under a wing for a month or two, and it finally got to the point I'd already made contact with PS-24, which is a squadron I was going to, and the CO said, look, he said, you're going to have to do something. I need somebody. We're going to deploy, and I need somebody in my squadron, so you better talk that captain into executing those orders, or I'm going to have to go to the Bureau and ask for a replacement.
Right.
So he finally let me go, and I got into the squadron. And that was my last sea duty billet.
Was it?
I had 2 years with that squadron, and we got a commendation. In fact, when I got the commendation, the captain was reading it, and he said, did you leave anything else out there for anybody? Because we'd taken every ward on the East Coast
Wow.
for operation of the submarine squadron. And from there, I went to shore duty in Corpus Christi, and that's where I retired.
One last question.
Yeah.
Out of all your assignments, which do you have the most fondest memory of?
USS Guadalcanal, and standing on a bridge driving that ship across the ocean.
Wow.
Yeah.
Going from being at Guadalcanal to being on the ship. Unbelievable.
Yeah. At the time, they did a little story and put it in the Philadelphia paper.
Wow.
I was the only crew member on the ship that had been a veteran of the
Really?
Guadalcanal campaign.
Wow.
Yeah. So they made a big deal out of it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Sir, I cannot thank you enough.
Hey, my pleasure,
Thank
man.
you so much. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.